So there's this phrase that I hear people use a lot. It goes along the lines of, everything happens for a reason. The big problem with this phrase is that so many people use it, but they don't understand what it actually means. Not only that, but that phrase is probably one of the most insensitive things you can say to someone who just had a traumatic experience. Typically, religious people like to use this phrase towards people who have just had a significant loss in their life. Typically, it is always religious people who use this phrase, everything happens for a reason, as a form of comfort, a way of trying to make you feel better about what happened to your mother, even though she just died in a traumatic car accident by a drunk driver. They try to make it feel better, and then they try to attribute the phrase to some greater good, some greater purpose, as in, God allowed this to happen for a reason, and no matter what happens, if your sister gets raped, your brother gets murdered, it happened for a reason, as they use it as a form of comfort. When in reality, I think it has the exact opposite effect if you try to critically think about what the phrase means. I mean, are you really going to tell me that my deaf and blind aunt, who was gang raped and then developed schizophrenia, and for the rest of her life lived with 30 cats which pooped in her house, and it had intermated and had cat feces everywhere, and she sat in that, had schizophrenia, and every time I tried talking to my aunt, she'd rip out paper and start writing, I hate men, I hate men, men are evil, men bad, men this, men bad. Are you gonna tell me that happened for a reason? As in some greater good, specifically a God, wanted that to happen? I'm sorry, but no. Here's the reality of the situation. Cause and effect exists. If I'm driving down the highway and I get in a car accident from a drunk driver, that is cause and effect. That drunk driver was drunk. He didn't plan on crashing into me, but he did because he was drunk. Because he was drunk, he caused a car accident which resulted in my death. That is cause and effect. But there are also those religious people who like to construe and twist cause and effect by saying if a woman is walking down the street wearing a provocative or promiscuous dress and a rapist comes out, grabs her, and then rapes her, that is cause and effect because that girl in her sexual dress caused that rapist to rape her because of how she dressed. Believe it or not, I have ran into religious people who say stuff like this, that instead of blaming the rapist who raped the woman, they use cause and effect as a means to say that the rapist raped her because of how she dressed. This does not work, and this is not an accurate representation of what cause and effect actually is. What it ultimately boils down to is if you say everything happens to a reason as a form of trying to comfort someone, you are telling someone that a greater good is going to result from a traumatic experience, and that is not necessarily always true. It absolutely astounds me how people can be so insensitive, and I admit I can be a bit hard-hearted at times, but I will never sit next to somebody when they just lost a loved one or someone of their loved or someone they care about was raped and say to them, it happened for a reason. I suggest that if you have anyone or know anyone who's been going through a difficult time, maybe they lost a loved one, be there for them, encourage them, love them, support them, but don't be a dick and say that everything happens for a reason. Because if it does, I certainly don't believe in God.